Hi family, welcome back to ladensercrochets. If you're new to the family, you're welcome. My name is Liz. Kindly subscribe and join the family. In this tutorial, we're going to work a pair of shorts using the mesh stitch, and we're going to be working it from top to bottom, and then later on we're going to attach the waistline or the waist ribbon to achieve this look that we have right here. Grab your materials and let's get into the tutorial. We need the following: a medium weight yarn. I'm using these two shades, and then we're going to need a 5mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, darning needle, stitch markers, measuring tape. We are going to work our pair of shorts in two separate pieces that are completely identical, and this is my first piece. So for this piece, you're going to need the following measurements. The first measurement that you're going to need is the full length of the short that you're working. Mine is at about 15.5, and you measure the full length without stretching. So get the full length, and that will be our starting chain. The next measurement is the hip measurement, which you're going to divide by 2. So this upper part, this is the upper part of my shorts, and this is folded into 2, and it's going up to 11. When I multiply 11 by 2, that will be 22. 22 is half of my hip measurement. That means when I multiply 22 by 2, I'll get to 44, which is my hip measurement. And I've measured without stretching. That means the short will be loosely fitted. If you want a tight short, you're going to take your measurements while stretching. So if I stretch this pair of this leg, I'm going to get to 16, and 16 multiplied by 2 is 32. 32 multiplied by 2 is 64, meaning this short can fit somebody with a hip measurement of 44 up to 64. 64 when stretched, 44 when not stretched. So that's the hip measurement, which is represented by this part. Then we have this extension right here, and this extension represents the thigh measurement. Sometimes the hip measurements and the thigh measurements are different, so you'll find that when you take the thigh measurement, it may be wider than half of your hip measurement, so you're going to need to take it, and this one goes up to 14, which means my thigh measurement is 28. So you're going to take the full length measurement, the hip measurement, and the thigh measurements. Those are the measurements that we're going to work with. So get those measurements and let's get into the tutorial. Get your hook and the yarn. Start with a slip knot and make a chain that is a multiple of 3 and is long enough to fit your full length. And the full length that I'm working is 15. I'm going to start with a chain of 45. 45 is a chain that is divisible by 3. So get any chain and get the length that you want and chain up to that length. So this is 1, 2, 3. I have my 45 chains, and when we measure these without stretching, it should get me to 15. So as you can see, it's getting me to 14, but once I work my first row, it's going to stretch up to 15. So then after the chain, we're going to count the first chain, then the second chain, insert your hook into that second chain, yarn over, pull up a loop to get 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the 2 loops to complete a single crochet, then insert your hook into the next chain, pull up a loop and complete a single crochet. That's the second one. Then a third single crochet into the third chain, a fourth single crochet into the fourth chain. Then we're going to place 1 single crochet into every chain to the end. At the end of the chain, at the end of the first row, you should have the number of chains that you worked minus 1. So I've started with 45. I should have 44 single crochets at the end of this first row. I'm at the end of row 1 and I have 44 single crochets. Then we're going to chain 2 and turn to begin row 2. The chain 2 will act as our first double crochet into the very first stitch. So we're going to yarn over, skip the first stitch, insert our hook into the second stitch, and yarn over and pull up a loop to get 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through the remaining 2 to complete a double crochet. Then chain 1, yarn over, skip the next stitch, work into the one that follows, place a double crochet, then a double crochet into the next stitch, then chain 1, skip a stitch and work into the next one, double crochet and a second double crochet into the next stitch, chain 1, yarn over, skip, double crochet and a second double crochet, chain 1, yarn over, skip, double crochet, then another double crochet. This is a pattern that we're going to have, and we're going to repeat it to the end of row 2. So chain 1, skip, double crochet, double crochet. Continue to the end of row 2 and I'll meet you there. When you get to the end, you should have 3 stitches remaining. So you're going to chain 1, yarn over, skip this stitch, work into the second last stitch with a double crochet, and then a double crochet into the very last stitch. So ensure that you end with 2 double crochets at the end. Then chain 1 and turn to begin row 3. We're going to work a row of single crochets, 1 into every stitch. So insert your hook into the first stitch, pull up a loop, and do a single crochet into the next double crochet, a single crochet into the chain 1, a single crochet into the double crochet, into the next double crochet, into the chain 1, then the double crochet, and the chain 1. Then repeat that to the end of row 3. Just 1 single crochet into every stitch. Make sure that you do not skip the chain 1 gaps. So when you get to the end, you should remember to work into the chain 2 that we started with the previous row, because that's a stitch and it can be easily forgotten. So be careful not to miss it. And to ensure that if you're a beginner, count the number of stitches, the number of single crochets, and make sure that they are 44. That's the end of row 3, chain 2 and turn to begin row 4. And we work row 4 the same way we worked row 2. Yarn over and begin in the second double crochet into the second stitch and work a double crochet, chain 1, yarn over, skip, double crochet and a second double crochet, chain 1, skip this, double crochet and double crochet next, chain 1, skip, double crochet and then another double crochet, then repeat to the end. I'm coming to the end of row 4 and I'll just chain 1, skip this stitch, work a double crochet and a double crochet at the end, chain 1 and turn to begin row 5. Row 5 is the same as row 3. So 1 single crochet into every stitch to the end. So we have this stitch at the end and on top of the chain 2. That's our last single crochet in row 5. We begin row 6, chain 2 and turn, and row 6 again is the same as row 2 and row 4. That means the even rows are the same. Then we have row 3 and row 5 are the same as row 7, row 9, and so the odd rows are also the same. So the odd rows are single crochet rows, the even rows are the double crochet rows separated by the chain. So we begin in the second stitch with a double crochet, chain 1, skip, double crochet, another double crochet, chain 1, skip, double crochet. So now I'm going to repeat these rows until I get to row 8. So you're just alternating between row 2 and row 3. Keep going until you get your 8 rows. I'll work my 8 rows, then I'll come back and show you what to do in row 9. In row 9, that's where I'm going to change my color. If you want to change the yarn at any other point, you can do that. Just make sure that when you're changing, you're starting the new color with a single crochet row, because that way it's easier to weave in the ends. So you can add it after row 6, or you can add it after row 8, row 10, whichever row you choose. I'm going to add my new color after row 8. So now I'm in row 6. I'll work row 6, row 7, and then row 8, then come back and show you how to change the yarn into the other color. I'm coming to the end of row 8, and right now I'm chaining 1, then I'll do the last 2 double crochets, chain 1, and then cut off that yarn. At that point we are done with the 8 rows. Then pull through and fasten, then turn your work so that we begin from this point. Insert your hook into the first stitch, grab the second color, you can start with a slip knot, or you can start just like me. So hold your yarn like this, put it on the hook and pull it through. Start with a chain 1, go back into that stitch with a single crochet, then work into the next stitch, place a single crochet into the chain 1 stitch, a single crochet into the double crochet, single crochet into the next double crochet, into the chain 1 stitch, and continue with 1 single crochet to the end. So this is just what we've been doing, and this is the row 3 repeat, where we're working just 1 single crochet into every stitch to the end. At the end, we're going to have our last single crochet into the chain 2, and we are done with row 9. Chain 2 and turn to begin row 10. Start with a double crochet into the second stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, work a double crochet next, and another double crochet, chain 1, skip, double crochet, and another double crochet. Repeat to the end. At the end of row 10, chain 1 and cut off the yarn. So we're done with the first 10 rows. Turn your work and get your main color, connect it. Into that first stitch, insert the hook, pull up the loop, work over those short ends, chain 1, single crochet into the first stitch, single crochet into the second double crochet, single crochet into the chain, single crochet into all the stitches. So this will be row 11, which is also row 1 after reconnecting our main color. And after reconnecting the main color, we're going to work again for another 8 rows. Then we're going to change to the navy blue, another 8 rows, and then change. So now I'll keep going with the rows, and to get to half of my hip measurements, I did a total of, let's see. So I started here. These are 10 rows, 20, 30, 40, 50, and these are 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I did a total of 57 rows to get me to half of my hip measurement. So work a number of rows that will give you the hip measurement that you're working with. So the number of rows that you work could be 40, it could be 45, depending on the size of your hips. I'm working a hip measurement of 44. Half of my hip measurement, like I mentioned earlier, is 22 inches. So 57 rows will get me to 22 inches without stretching. Also remember that you can work while stretching the hip measurements if you want your short to be tight. I said that I want mine to be loose, and that is why I'm working without stretching out the width. So I'm going to go on and work the total of 57 rows. Then I'll be back once I'm done with that number of rows. Then I'll show you what to do next. This right here is after 57 rows. And after the 57 rows, or the number of rows that you're going to work, do not cut off the yarn. So now get your first leg, and we're going to confirm the extension that I did in order to get to my thigh measurements. And right here I did a total of, I'm just counting the number of rows, the number of rows that I did for the extension part, and there are 10 rows. So I'm going to work 5 rows on one side, then 5 rows on the other side, and then I'll connect in the middle. The other thing we need to confirm, which is a measurement I forgot to mention, is the fly measurements. And we measure the fly from the top to that part where the extension ends, and we do this while stretching our work. So when I stretch out that part, I'm getting to 11 inches, and therefore I'll just go to the other panel and do the same exact thing, stretch out my work and make sure that I measure up to 11 inches. Now if you've already done this for one of the legs, all you need to do is count the number of stitches on the other panel, because you need to make sure that the stitches that remain on top are the same for both of the 2 legs that you're working. So just fold your work into 2. Actually, you don't need to fold into 2. You can measure without folding, because you only need to measure on one side, and then on the other side you'll just count the number of stitches. So right here I'm just stretching out my work, and I want to make sure that I get to 11 inches. So I'll do that and then mark that part. So you're measuring from the top, from the side where the yarn is, from the side where you do not have your yarn. So right here, let me just do that measurement without folding into 2. And I'm stretching out to get to 11. And so I'll just mark. Once you've measured on one of the legs, the other one you'll just count the number of stitches. So right here, I'll just count the number of stitches that are going to remain on the upper part, and then I'll go to the other side of the panel and count the same number of stitches and then mark. So I'm just confirming on my on my leg that I've already worked, just confirming that the number of stitches are the same. Then I'll begin from the bottom part where I've stopped, and I've already done 7 rows, so this is the 8th row. We're just repeating the same pattern that we've been working. 2 double crochets, chain 1, skip, then 2 double crochets, chain 1, skip another 2 double crochets, and I'll keep going until I get to where the stitch marker is. Then 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1, then continue to that point where the stitch marker is, just repeating the pattern. Make sure that you end with the 2 double crochets. So I'm ending at that point, and because that's my 8th row, I'll chain 1 and cut off the yarn. If you're in the 5th or the 6th, you'll need to continue until you get the 8 rows. So I'll cut off the yarn and pull through, then fasten, and then turn my work to the other side. Now from here, I'm going to grab the navy blue yarn and reconnect it, then to do 2 rows with it. So connect the yarn at that upper part, and that part of the extension, then chain 1 and place a single crochet in the first stitch, a single crochet into the next stitch, a single crochet into the chain 1 space, next, so into the chain 1 space, on top of the double crochet, on top of the next double crochet, into the chain 1 space, next, and then continue to the end. So I'll continue to the end of this row, which is my row 2 of the extension, with the single crochets. Then I'll chain 2 at the end, turn and work the other row of double crochets and the chains. I'll meet you at the end of the second row with the navy blue yarn. I'm coming to the end of that second row, and I'm just working my last 2 double crochets right there. Then I'll chain 1 and cut off the yarn. Now that's my 3rd row of extension, so I have 2 rows remaining for this part. So I'll turn to the other side, connect the cream yarn and work 2 rows to get me to 5 rows. So connect the yarn and then chain 1. Then I'll do a row of single crochets, then do a row of double crochets and the chains, and come back. I'm at the end of that second row, and I've just done the last double crochet, and I'm done with the 5 rows. So I've chained 1, cut off the yarn, pull through and fasten. So the 5 rows extension on this side is done. So just going to turn to the other side and make sure that you're on the wrong side of the stitches before you do an extension of 5 stitches on that other side. So I'm just counting the number of stitches that I've worked for the bottom part, so that I can work the same number of stitches on the other side. And because I already have 8 rows, the next 2 rows that I'll do will be with the navy blue yarn. Begin in the first stitch, do the slip stitch, and I'm on a single crochet row. Actually, I'll do a slip knot because I'm going to work a double crochet row because there's already a single crochet row over there. So slip stitch into the first stitch, and then we are going to work a double crochet row. So chain 2, that's our first double crochet. I'm not going to work over the ends, I'll weave them later. Work a double crochet into the second stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, then work a double crochet followed by another double crochet, chain 1, repeat the pattern until you have the same number of stitches as the ones that you have on the other side. So I'm just going to count to confirm that I have the same number of stitches, then chain 1 and turn, and this second row is going to be a single crochet row. So do 1 single crochet into each of the stitches, including the chain 1 space, till you get to the end of this second row of extension. Once you get to the end, you're going to chain 1 and cut off the yarn, and that will be the second row of extension. Then we're going to connect the other color and work 3 rows of the extension before finishing the panel and connecting it to the other side. I'm coming to the end of the third row with the cream yarn, and this is the 5th row of extension. So once I get to the end, I'll chain. I'll not cut off the yarn, but I'll be done. I'll use the yarn to connect. So we have the 5 rows of extension on that other side. So chain 1, and then we're going to fold our work into 2, just like this, so that we connect the 2 ends of the panel to complete the leg. So now right here, I'll just connect these 2 ends with single crochets. You can do that using the darning needle. So make sure that you're working on the wrong side of your leg, and this is my wrong side, the other side is the right. I've already chained 1, so I'll just go into that first double crochet and the first double crochet on the other side, and then connect them with a single crochet. Then insert my hook into the second double crochet on one side, then get the next double crochet on the other side, connect them with a single crochet. Into the chain 1 space on both ends, do a single crochet, connect the 2 double crochets, then the next 2 double crochets, followed by the chain 1 space, and we're just connecting with single crochets into each of the corresponding stitches till we get to the bottom part. I'm in the last stitch, so I'll do the last single crochet, chain 1, and cut off the yarn at that point. Then I'll pull through the yarn and fasten. And now I'm going to get my darning needle and I'm going to weave in all those ends that have been left hanging there. Just removing the stitch marker because I don't need it anymore. Then I'll get the darning needle and weave in the ends. As you do this, you need to make sure that you're weaving in on the single crochet rows, because that way your ends will be more secure. So I'm taking the end that is on the double crochet row and bringing it up to the single crochet row, and then I'm weaving it in together with the end that was right there. Then I'll just cut off the remaining piece of yarn, then do the same thing with the cream yarn. Make sure that it's on the double crochet row and weave it in. I have another end over there, so I'm weaving it in the single crochet row. And right here we have the second leg ready. I've already worked the first one, so you need to work this one and a second one. Then turn your work to the right side, and now we're going to get the second leg and join them. I have my second leg over here, so the two halves of the pair of shorts are ready, and now it's time to join them. We're going to place the two legs side by side like this, such that the extensions are in the middle part. Then we're going to get stitch markers. Make sure that you're working on the right side of your pair of shorts, or make sure that you've turned the two legs to the right side. Get a stitch marker and mark the middle part of each of the two legs. So the middle part on one side and the middle part at the center on the other side. So connect those two with a stitch marker. Then we're going to get another stitch marker and we're going to mark the next corner. Like, the stitches are the same, you actually don't need to mark, but I like marking just to make sure that in case I miss a stitch, my work is still aligned correctly, because sometimes you might miss a stitch or two, but then when you have stitch markers on, then it makes it easy to ensure that you keep your work the right way. So now turn your work like this and get a hook or a darning needle, whatever you want to join with. I'm going to join my work with the hook. So get the hook and the yarn, insert the hook into the first stitch and the first stitch on the other side, and then you're going to grab the yarn that you're going to use to connect. It could be the cream, it could be the navy blue, or whatever color you're using. So I'm going to connect with the navy blue, so I'll just reconnect the yarn with a slip stitch and then chain 1. Then I'm going to connect with single crochets, chain 1, back into that first stitch with a single crochet, and as I work, I'm going to work over the end, connect the second two stitches. Then we're just going to connect the corresponding stitches till we get to the middle. Once we get to the middle part of the pair of shorts, we'll continue to the other side. So just go on, work your single crochets, or connect with the darning needle, whatever works for you. When we get to the stitch marker, we just pull it out and work a single crochet right there where the stitch marker was. So connect with a single crochet, and that will get us onto the rows, the single crochet row on this side and the single crochet row on the other side. Connect them with one single crochet. Then on the double crochet rows, we're going to place 2 single crochets, 1 single crochet into the single crochet row. We get to the double crochet rows and we work 2 single crochets into them. That is 1 and 2. Into the single crochet rows, we place just 1 single crochet. So we're placing 2 single crochets into the double crochet rows, 1 single crochet into the single crochet rows. So I'm in the double crochet row and I've already done one of the single crochets, so I'll do a second one. I'm actually on the double crochet row, so I'm doing the 2 single crochets there, and the stitch marker is on a double crochet row, on a single crochet row, sorry. So into that single crochet row and the single crochet row on the other side, I'll do 1 single crochet. So now I've connected up to the middle part of the 2 legs, and this is what we have. So now we need to turn to the other half on the other side and work the same way. So now just make sure that you're working on the wrong side. The pair of pants the legs should be on the right side, but when you're working, you make sure that you're working on the wrong side. So right here I'm just getting stitch markers and aligning my work. Like I mentioned earlier, you don't really need the stitch markers. I just use them to make sure that in case I miss a stitch, I do not have misaligned work. So in the double crochet rows, we are going to place 2 single crochets into those 2 rows, 2 single crochets. So that is 1, and I'll work a second one. Then in the single crochet row and the single crochet row on the other side, do a single crochet, 2 single crochets into the double crochet rows, 1 and 2. Then I'll just remove the stitch marker. Then I'll work in the single crochet rows and the other single crochet on the other side. Then the double crochet rows will get 2 single crochets, the single crochet row and the single crochet row on the other side. And now we're getting to single crochet stitches. So on each of those stitches, are they single crochet stitches or double crochet? They're actually double crochet stitches. Let me see. So on one side we have double crochet stitches, on the other side we have single crochet stitches. So we're just going to align our stitches and work all the way to the end. So let me do that, then come back. At the end, I have my last single crochet. Then I'll chain 1. Actually, I'll just show you what we have right now after joining the 2 legs. So this is what we have. I've not cut off the yarn because I'm going to use it to work the ribbon for the waistband. So we're just going to go back to that stitch that we have on top. I'll reconnect more yarn because I seem to have run out of yarn, but I still have my stitch over there. So let me connect the yarn and then come back and show you how to do the ribbon. Chain 1, then turn your work to the wrong side, work on the inside part of the shorts. Begin with a single crochet into that point of connection, 2 single crochets onto the double crochet row, 1 single crochet onto the single crochet row, 2 single crochets onto the double crochet row, and then we're going to repeat this pattern all the way around the waistline of the pair of shorts. So wherever there's a single crochet row, you're going to place 1 stitch, then 2 stitches into the double crochet row, and then go all the way around the waistline. I'll meet you once I come back to the point where I've started. I'm coming to the end of that row with single crochets, and I'll slip stitch into the first stitch. And this looks wide, but I assure you it's going to work out. So don't worry about the wideness of that part. Now we're going to chain 10. And turn to the right side of the pair of shorts. Once you turn to the right side, you're going to block off the 10th chain that you've done, that last chain. Block it off, then chain 1 more. Go into that chain that you're holding and pull up a loop and complete a slip stitch. Into the next chain that follows, you're going to do a slip stitch into the 3rd chain, and we're going to place 1 slip stitch into each of the stitches for a total of 10 slip stitches. So go on, work 1 slip stitch into each of the chains. I'll meet you once I have the 10. I'm in the last stitch. I'll do the slip stitch there. Then we move on to the stitch that follows on the pair of shorts, slip stitch into it, and then you can get a stitch marker and mark the 10th stitch that we've done. But if you're able to remember it, you actually don't need to mark. Then slip stitch again on the next stitch and turn. When we turn, we're going to begin from the 10th stitch that we did previously, which is the marked stitch. I feel like I should have used a brighter color for this part because this one is really not visible. But then you're just going to need to do a slip stitch into each of the stitches. So that is 1. Then we are working in the back loops. That's 2, 3, then 4. Make sure that you're just doing a slip stitch into the back loop of each of the stitches. And this is row 2 of the ribbon. We're going to work a total of 9 stitches first before we work the last stitch. So I'm in the 9th now. Actually, I was in the 8th. Now I'm in the 9th stitch, working the back loop. But for the 10th stitch, we're going to work the 2 loops, both of the 2 loops. So make sure that you go into the 2 loops and do your last slip stitch there. So in all the even rows, you need to make sure that when you come to the end, you work the 2 loops, chain 1 and turn to begin row 3. Row 3 is an odd row, and for the odd rows, we work back loop for all the stitches. So begin in the back loop of the first stitch, in the back loop of the second stitch, the back loop of the third stitch, and continue for a total of 10 stitches. So that's 3. We have 4, then keep going. That's my 5th. Then the next one is the 6th. Then we have the 7th. I'm working in the back loops, remember that. So that's 7. Then we have 8, 9, and 10. The 10th stitch will be our first stitch when we begin the next row. Slip stitch in the next stitch and into the stitch that follows. Then turn your work and begin on the 10th stitch that we did. Start with a slip stitch and work for a total of 9 slip stitches in the back loop. Make sure there are 9, and then in the 10th stitch we'll work both loops. This is row 4, which is an even row, and at the end we should work the 2 loops. So right here I'm just working the back loops. In the last stitch I'll go into both of my 2 loops, chain 1 and turn to begin row 5. Row 5 is an odd row, so we work all the back loops beginning with the first one. Do a slip stitch and then the next one, and do a total of 10 slip stitches in the back loop. Keep going with the rows. Once you get to the waistline, you're going to slip stitch twice into the first stitch and onto the second stitch before turning to begin the next row. So I'm coming to the end of row 5. I'll just show you one more time how to turn on this side, then you'll be able to keep going. So slip stitch into the stitch that follows, then slip stitch into the next and turn. Now begin on the 10th stitch of the row and keep going all the way around the waistline. I'll meet you once I'm done working the ribbon in each of the stitches on the waistline. I've worked all the way around the waistline, and I'm just doing the last row right now, just working the slip stitches into each of the stitches in the back loops. So this is my last row because I've already worked all the stitches. In the last stitch I'll work 2 loops, chain 1, and I'm going to cut off the yarn, but then I'll leave a long end that I'll use to join those two open sides of the waistline. So get your pair of scissors and cut off the yarn. Make sure that you leave a long end, not too long but long enough. Next we get the darning needle, and we're going to use it to join the ends of the ribbon, and how you join is totally and completely up to you. This shade is so dark. I'm actually straining to see the stitches. I'll make sure that I'll avoid dark yarns when I'm doing the tutorials. So this is how we're going to join the stitches. I'm actually doing this from the right side of my shorts. I'm just going onto one stitch on one side and the other stitch on the other side. On one side I'm doing both loops, on the other side I'm doing the back loop, and I'm just going to join for a total of the 10 stitches. So now just keep going like this, joining your corresponding stitches. Make sure you close up that space completely so that you don't have any opening, and then after that you're going to take your yarn to the wrong side, and once on the wrong side you're going to make a knot just to secure and ensure that your work does not unravel. Then weave in the end that has remained. So just go inside those single crochet stitches that we did on the waistline and weave in the end. Once you're satisfied that it's well hidden, cut off the remaining end, and we are done with our pair of shorts. The waistline is ready. This is what we have, and this is the bottom part of the shorts. Now for the waistline you can do a chain of like 200 chains and then attach it on the waistline. Because we worked with hip measurements, it will not be able to fit perfectly. Or you can use this elastic yarn to make sure that you're able to get a waistline that fits onto your waist. And this is what I'm going to do. Get your elastic yarn and measure it on the waistline. Make sure like you leave some inches at the end that are like that, and then fold the yarn into 2 and cut it off. So you want to align it on your waistline, but then you need to leave some inches on the end. Then you're going to cut 3 pieces in that length that you've just cut. So I'm making the second one in the same length. I'll get a pair of scissors and cut. Then I'll do a third piece, because we're going to have 3 lines with the elastic yarn, and I'll just cut. So now I'll get the darning needle and one of the elastic threads and put the thread through. Then after putting it through, I'll just go onto the inside of the pair of shorts and attach it. From the wrong side we're going to get the first stitch of the ribbon, right there, and you're just going to go through it, but make sure that the yarn does not appear on the other side. Make sure that you're only working on the rows, but the yarn, the elastic yarn should not be appearing on the other side. So now I'll do 2 knots at that point. So that's the first knot, and I'll do a second one. Then I'm leaving some end that I'll use to do a knot once I come to the end, because I'll also be connecting with a knot once I've gone all the way around. Then after that, this is what you're going to do. Into each of those rows that you can see over there, you're just going to go through them like this. And we're just going to go all the way around. So let me do that. I'm coming to the end, and I'm just doing the last rows, and then I'll walk into that row just before the first one that I did, and now I'll pull my elastic band to my liking. So you need to pull it and make sure that once you pulled it, that is able to fit through your hips, and then also fit perfectly onto your waist. So you should be able to go through your hips and fit onto the waist. So right here, I'm just pulling the elastic band just to make sure it's consistent all the way around the pair of shorts. And then I'll make the knot at the end. So right here, I'll do the measurement. Make sure that it is stretching up to my hip measurements, and also it's able to fit onto the waist. So right here, I'm just measuring and adjusting the consistency of my elastic band. I'll pull some more, then after that I'll do a knot at the end. Make the knots. I'm going to do 3 of the knots, 3 of them actually. Just make sure that they are tight and secure, and then I'll cut off the remaining yarn. So that's the second, and I'm going to do a third one. Then I'll cut the stitch at the end. Make sure that you don't cut too close to the knots. I'll be using my lighter to burn those ends so that they do not unravel. Now we're going to get another strand of the elastic yarn, and we're going to attach it in the middle part of the waistline. We are attaching 3 of them, one at the bottom part of the waistline, the next one in the middle, and the other one on top. So we're just going to work the same way we've done with the bottom one. Just make sure that it's in the middle, like on the 5th or the 6th stitch on the row. Start with a knot. Then we're going to work the rows just like we did with the first one. Just go through the rows, making sure that the yarn is not visible on the right side of the waistline. And now just keep going all the way around. Once you come to the end, we'll do the last rows, then do the adjustment just like we did with the first row, and then after that I'll do the knots and complete. Get the third elastic band, and this one we're going to attach it to the very top of the waistline, and this is how we're going to go about it. Start with the knots just like with the previous 2 rows. Do your knots over there. For this one I need to leave a longer end because when I'm making the last knot, I'll not do it from the upper part. I'll need to drop it down a little bit just to make sure that it does not appear on the right side at any given point on the rows all the way around the waistline, and I'll meet you at the end. Tie the knot at the end. Then we're going to drop that yarn below just to make sure that we're not going to have the ends hanging outside the shorts. Then I'll get these ones and drop them too, and then after I do that I'm going to make a knot with the two ends. So just like that, get those 2 ends, make a knot. Make sure that you do not distort the shape of the waistline as you do this. Then you're going to cut off the ends that are going to remain, and after that we're going to get the lighter and burn the ends just to make sure that they are secure and they are not going to unravel. If you have a better way of doing this, then you can do that, and after this we'll be done. Our short is ready, the waistline is perfect, and the fitting is loose. It's not going to be a tight short. So thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the tutorial. If you've enjoyed the tutorial, kindly leave a like, a comment, share, and subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you recreate this, kindly tag me on Instagram stories and I'll be reposting your work. See you in the next one.